is the fifth most abundant element in the human body. It makes up our teeth, our bones, some other structures, but it also has a critical role in how our nerves communicate. It has a critical role in how our muscles contract and expand. Calcium is one of the things that you literally cannot live without. Each breath you take is made possible by calcium. So the interesting thing about this life-giving element is where it comes from. Stars are like gigantic, mighty chemical factories. They burn hydrogen and helium through a process of nuclear fusion that produces tremendous amounts of heat energy, and in addition to energy, the fusion process in massive stars, and by massive, the technical definition of that is stars that are like 8 times the size of our sun. Any star that's bigger than that ultimately uses up all this helium and hydrogen, and other heavy atoms are forming like iron and carbon and nitrogen, and when the core of a star fills up with enough iron, it can't keep the process of fusion going anymore. And there's so much iron that it collapses in on itself, and you get a supernova. When you have a supernova, all of the elements that are in the star, all of the atoms and all of the stuff gets shot and expanded so fast that as the atoms cram into each other, that's where the elements form. And they've looked at supernovas, they looked at the clouds and the gas, and they know that one of the most frequent things that comes out of a supernova is calcium. That's where it's formed. So those explosions of various dying stars spread out throughout the universe. The dust cloud, when it's big enough and heavy enough, forms clusters, and they gather into these groups, and that's how we get solar systems. So when God said, "Let there be light," and when he created everything out of nothing, that's the process that we know he used because we can observe it. God had you in mind when he created the universe. And not just any created being or thing. He had you in mind as an image bearer. He wanted you to bear nothing less than the very image of God in your person. And to see to it, he collapsed stars in spectacular fashion to get the parts. You are built from star stuff. Your teeth, which you are now painfully aware of because I keep bringing it up, your teeth came from the interior of a supernova so that you could bear the image of God, and not just that, so that you could be in relationship with God. That was worth collapsing the star for somewhere. That's where the parts came from. Creating a world, a universe that you could exist in, it wasn't the whole picture, though. Your Creator, your God, wanted you to feel his love. He wanted to be in relationship with you. So he began to reveal himself, first to Adam and Eve. He spoke to the prophets. He talked to Abraham. He revealed himself directly to Moses. He gave us the law, and not to constrain or keep us hampered in. The law was to keep free people free. But he revealed all of this to us so that we could be in relationship with him, so we could live with him. And as you know, from the very first moment, that desire of God to be with us was interrupted by our desire to value other things over that relationship with God. Sin. When we choose what we know is wrong over what we know is right, we separate ourselves from God. And so God, knowing that, took the ultimate step. He, in the person of Jesus Christ, becomes incarnate, which literally means he put on flesh. And he came here to live with us. The Word became flesh and dwelt amongst us. The incarnation. He takes the ashes and dust of creation, he sets aside his glory, puts it on, and dwells with us. He becomes us. Not just to be love for us, but also to show us in great detail what love is like, what it can be. A love so great that it is willing to go the way of all ash and dust and die the death that we deserve. When God created the universe and split the stars to make us, he must have known he must have known that some of those particles would one day be the flesh that he himself would wear. And he must have known that some of that star stuff would eventually coalesce and grow and become the tree that he would die on. And yet he was willing to do it because sometimes it takes an incarnation. There are problems, some problems, that only an incarnation can solve. So we've just been through the Christmas season. We know a pretty fair amount about what that incarnation looked like and what it entailed. So this morning I want us to look at a different model of incarnation. It's almost a modern parable, except what I'm going to show you has actually happened. And I think it's a really good picture of what an incarnation can do. So that brings us to the singer, Adele. Adele is a British pop singer. I'm actually not that familiar with her work, although I've run into it over the years. But to give you an idea of her popularity, here is a screen capture from one of her videos. Now, what I want you to notice in the lower left-hand corner there is the number of views. Okay? 2,188,884,351 people have watched just this video. And several of our other videos, I think this one is the one I found that had the most at 2 billion, but there's at least one other video that has 1 billion views. So Adele is huge, very popular, and especially in Britain. And she's so popular that there's actually an industry made up of Adele impersonators. Okay? So if you want Adele or somebody like her to sing at your party, there's people that study her voice and her ways and her techniques, and there's enough of them that the BBC decided to audition some of them for a reality TV show, except that it wasn't really a reality TV show. If you're quick, you might have noticed that in this group of Adele impersonators, one of them is in fact Adele. So they brought in these people to audition for an Adele reality show, but what they didn't know was that Adele was actually there with them. So I want you to watch this video, and as we get ready to watch it, there's a couple things I want you to notice. Notice that Adele literally puts on flesh so that she can dwell amongst them. Okay, I think you'll see that. But what I really want you to watch is Gabriella. Okay, that's Gabriella there in the middle. So please pay attention to her experience. And there's a lot to notice here, but do pay attention to her.
You look amazing.
Hello, Graham.
Hello.
Hello, I'm Jenny.
Nice to meet you, Jenny. That's so good. You look so not like yourself.
I have to put gloves on for my tattoos.
Yeah, it's so funny. I was sitting here. It was like a really awkward blind date. I was like, will I recognise her when she comes in? Yeah. It like makes your eyes look different.
She's made my eyes look more catty, and then I've got a fake chin, a fake nose, and she's drawn my lips smaller.
Oh, okay. So the chin is fake as well.
Well, I've got bum chin, so they'd know, I reckon.
Yeah. Obviously, you're not going to speak like this, so you're going to do
I'm going to Jenny. It's very calm and slow, because I talk really fast and really harsh. But also my day job is I'm a nanny. So nannies talk very slow, very calm, to try and make the world make sense.
I guess you should go backstage and get ready for this.
And I walk like this as well. I don't got that now.
All right, we're about to kick off. The first Adele is taking to the stage. Here we go.
I'm Gabriella.
Jenny.
Do you guys just do Adele? Any of us do you just do Adele?
Yeah, I've just started out.
Can't wait for the new album though. New music.
Yeah.
New music will be so taking her time.
Try to say that to her face. Love to see the reaction.
I would.
She's chatting. She's
She's got her hands.
I've been doing this like about 6 months.
What about you?
5 years. Yeah.
4. Mine's been a bit slow recently. Not that many.
Oh, really?
Yeah, not much of a demand.
And the rain is blowing in your face.
I think she'd like him. She would like him, yeah. She really would, I think.
Okay, Lisa Martin, please.
So when she's in the Royal Albert Hall, she decides that she wants to take her shoes off because they hurt. So if my feet hurt, I might take them off. Is that fair, girls? That's fair. Make like Adele.
I know you haven't made your mind up yet.
I'm actually feeling quite sick.
You're right.
Feeling a bit dizzy, actually.
Do you want to go get some fresh air?
I'm not feeling great.
To make you feel my love.
Jenny, stand by. Jenny will go on my cue. 3, 2, 1, action.
Sorry.
Water?
Do it one more time.
Okay, one more time.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Okay, I think that's happy.
When the rain is blowing in your face, and the whole world is
You are joking.
I could offer you a warm embrace. That is it's not.
It is.
It's a dance. When the evening shadows and the stars, and there's no one there to dry your tears.
Oh, it's not her, honestly.
Jenny's on stage now, singing, and I think the other Adeles have finally twigged.
But I will never do I've known if
She's nicked my nose. Is she wrong with authentic nose?
Yeah.
No, I'm getting a bit teary. This is so lovely.
You ain't seen nothing like it.
I could make you happy, make your dreams come true. Nothing that I wouldn't do to make you feel my love.
Adele, meet your Adele. It's so good.
Oh my god. That is unreal. It's okay.
Can't believe it.
I'm gobsmacked.
Can't actually believe it.
I think I was maybe the last person to click.
As soon as you opened your mouth, you could just tell, you can't mimic like that.
It was just beautiful. Beautiful. Just thank you.
Did you see the difference that an incarnation makes? Okay? These people were following Adele. They knew her inside and out. They knew all the music. And yet, do you think they're ever going to be the same? Do you think that their performances as Adele will ever be the same? She literally put on flesh. She changed her nose, and she changed the way she talked, and she covered herself up so that she could be amongst them, so that they could have that moment. So here's what an incarnation does. It takes you from skeptical, not sure what's going on, although you'll notice the person that had been doing it the longest knew immediately as soon as she heard her master's voice. She knew immediately who it was. But Gabriella was not sure. It goes from not sure to, is this real, to, oh my God. You know, that's what an incarnation does. Now, if we want to be like Jesus, if we want to be a disciple, it isn't enough to just, peek around the mask every now and again. If we want to be like Jesus, then we need to do the things that he did. And the most profound thing that he ever did was to become incarnate in people's lives, to put on flesh and dwell amongst people. So how do we do that? There is a world of people waiting to encounter the Christ that is amongst them right now. And it will take us who bear the name Christian to become incarnate in their lives, to dwell with them, so that they can have this Gabriella moment with Jesus, a moment of knowing pure joy of Christ amongst them. We may be the only incarnation of Christ that people initially get to see. So what does that look like? I want to talk about some of the ways that I've seen that. Has Jeannie ever come up behind you and given you a tickle? Has that happened to anybody else? It happened to me last week, or maybe a couple weeks ago. I'm just standing there, and also Jeannie comes and goes, tickle. And I turned around and she said, you know, I do that to people at work, because sometimes people at work are just having a crummy day, or sometimes it's been a long day. Maybe it's Black Friday, and I'll come up behind them and I go, tickle, and they will smile, and they'll forget, where they were at in that moment, and be just a little bit better. That is being incarnate in somebody's lives. That's being Jesus for them. Christ dwelt among us with an accordion, right? When Hank played the accordion, I wanted him right over there. I wanted him right up front and in the middle so that everybody could see. And he said, no, I want to be over in the corner. But he still went out of his way, and I think maybe a little out of his comfort zone, to share his music with us. That's an incarnation. That's being incarnate for people so that they can hear that music and be lifted up. It is playing for us week after week after week faithfully, like Joanne and Marlis do, so that we can come in here and praise God through song and through music and through worship. That's an incarnation. Last week I saw Mary Bittner inviting people to join Bible Study Fellowship. Bible Study Fellowship is a community Bible study. It's been around a long time, but it's worldwide actually. But I know she's been in it. My daughter Rose has been in it with her. And she was sharing that. She says, this is a good thing. I think you'd like it. I think it would make you closer to the scriptures. And so that's being incarnate, that invitational aspect of saying, I've seen Jesus in this. You should come and see him too. That's being an incarnation for somebody. Andrew once invited me to be a part of a prison ministry. And I don't know if I've ever talked about it here before, but part of that weekend was for the prisoners up at Stillwater Penitentiary was putting on clown makeup, a full clown outfit. And if you want, I can tell you all about it, but I can only tell you that there were 3 of us, and by what we did, by the end of it, some of the hardest cases up there were weeping openly at the end of that, because it was a way that revealed Christ's love to them. And that's an incarnation. You can be an incarnation by being a clown in a prison. I want to give 2 more examples. Joe Cerna was a decorated Green Beret who had done tours in Afghanistan. And while there, his Humvee went down a road that collapsed while they were on it due to flooding. He and the other soldiers in the Jeep, or it was in the Humvee, began to drown as the water flooded the vehicle as they couldn't get out because they were trapped. And Joe would have drowned with his entire squad, except the water stopped at his chin. So he came home, and as you can imagine, he suffers from PTSD and extreme claustrophobia. His adjustment once he got home has been difficult, and one thing led to another, and he ended up in the courtroom of North Carolina Judge Lou Oliveira, himself a Gulf War vet. Judge Oliveira had no choice. He had to sentence Joe to at least 1 day and 1 night in prison. It's at least. It's a minimum sentence, but because of what he did to end up in court, he had no choice. He had to sentence him to spending a day and a night in a 6x6 cell. Now, for somebody with PTSD and extreme claustrophobia, it was almost a death sentence. but he could do no less. And that's when an incarnation happened. Judge Oliveira handed down the sentence, but unbeknownst to Joe, when it came time for him to enter that cell, he entered the cell with him. The judge got permission from the prison to spend the entire day and night in the cell with Joe so that he could talk to him all night, so that he could share their common veteran experience, so that he could stand it. And that's what made it bearable. It took an incarnation to take that situation, and still probably very difficult, but because he was willing to put on flesh and dwell with him, it was bearable. That's what an incarnation looks like. My last example is closer to home. Mercy ships are floating hospitals. They go places where advanced medical care is non-existent, and they provide life-saving and life-changing surgeries. Kayla Bissonette is a longtime family friend of the Kringles, and probably some of you know her as well. She's a registered nurse who was serving for 9 months on a Mercy ship in Cameroon. The areas that they go to are not safe. They need an armed escort to go out amongst the people to find who they're going to serve and get them back onto the ship. On top of that, Kayla pays for the privilege of serving. The prophet Micah said, what does the Lord require of you? And one of the things is to love mercy. Kayla clearly loves mercy. Here's a photo with a patient. She had this to say about it. This baby girl is near and dear to my heart. She has a tumor with so much blood vessel involvement that medicine and prayer is what we need to shrink her tumor. Join me. Kayla has given up her life, and she's gone to Cameroon to be incarnate, to dwell amongst, to bring healing, just like Jesus did. For that baby, her presence is a miracle of the incarnation. We have an opportunity, by the way, to join Kayla. As I mentioned, she pays to be on that ship. And to help her, we're going to put a basket out back, or maybe just right over there by the reef on your way out. If you feel so called, make a donation to Kayla, and we will see to it that she gets it so that we can be in partnership with that. You are made of star stuff. God collapsed stars to build you, and you bear his image. The Lord put on flesh and dwelt among us, because sometimes it takes an incarnation. So how are you being called to be an incarnation? And it can be anything from tickle all the way up to spending a night in prison or going on a mercy ship or whatever it is. How are you being called? How will we be called to enable Gabriella moments for people? May God grant us the willingness to bear his image to whoever needs it, to wherever they are, so that they can see him and know him and feel his love.